to Appalachia's Homestead. Welcome back to the farm. Happy Sunday afternoon to you. What I love about Sundays. Don't you love that song? Give me a hug. Let's play some Craig Morgan today. Come on, right? All right. So welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing well. We just got back from church and I've got hamburgers cooking for everybody. And I thought I would make a quick video for you today. I know a lot's going on still, and I think it's important that we have this time to talk together, especially us gals, guys too, but you gals out there. I hope you really take to heart this video, and if a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about are working for you and whatnot, please share that in the comments down below, because I think it's really important that we have community. Guys, there's a lot going on, and I know stress is very, very high. Emotions are very, very high, and we're going to be talking about a lot of this in different realms, because everything that we're doing right now is all relatable. And if you follow the channel, at least for the past couple of months, you know that I really started making a shift because I felt called to. I feel like the last 6 months to a year has really been a massive, great awakening for me. And, you know, I think a lot of you are experiencing these things as well in the spiritual realm and also in the physical realm because of health reasons, emotional reasons. And I think all of this is related. Duh, right? So I had a phenomenal experience, if you want to call it that, at the end of June. And I felt the calling from God to get more prepared in terms of my spiritual realm, if you will, or commitment, my love for Jesus, and my boldness in speaking about being a Christian. And also I felt the call to warrior up. I said it just like that. Go back to the end of June, check out some of the videos I posted. It'll tell you why. And that's another whole huge conversation. So in July, I really started focusing in on how I wanted to transform myself back into a state of control, meaning I had control over myself. And you'll see me talk about this a lot because I think a lot of people, as I said yesterday, you know, once you let loose and you let go of having control of your own self, of your own brain, of your own body, meaning you have no discipline, you have no course of action, you give up your reasoning for everything that you're doing, you're just floating along, the world is going to suck you in to everything. And by that, you lose control. And I'm just going to say this, I think really bad demonic spaces and portals open up for people. So we have to get into a rhythm and a routine of discipline as much as possible. A lot of people don't like to hear this type of conversation because it makes them feel they have to, you know, be more responsible for themselves and be held accountable. You should be. You should be accountable for yourself. And don't get me wrong. I'm constantly working on this. So this is a course of action, right? So I changed my diet about 90% now. I am heavily into lots of physical exercise, 5 to 6 days a week. We'll talk about that. Because I've already had some people really push on me with this and try to argue with me to basically say that what I'm doing is wrong, ineffective, and unhealthy to talk about, to encourage you to look into this life change. That's a demonic force working against the positivity that God wants for our lives, including how we feel. And especially for us women, I think us women right now, I think it's very important for all women, don't get me wrong, but there's something about the age of 45 to 50 that becomes very different for women. And I know in my family, by the time most of the women in my family were at least 45, they were grandmothers. They were grandmothers many times over. And so that took on a different perspective of life and a role in the family. Matriarchs were quote, born, if you will, because of the elders were either, you know, moving over a little bit, or some had passed. And so a lot of the women in my family, by the time they really reached 50, they had the role, man. And so I want to speak to that because I'm going into this year, I'll be going on 50. And things are very different. And I feel over the last 5 years, 5 to 6 years since 2020, since basically COVID, I think we have lost our way even further. But at the same time, I think a great awakening has happened since 2020 as well. We're realizing what is being done to us and what we are allowing to be done to us as well, because we're not taking control. And if you can't change the world, you can start by changing yourself. And that's where I'm at. And I still feel like that's my role right now. No, I didn't garden this year, and now I know why. I now know why I felt the calling to rest a few things on my farm back in the late spring, because God was preparing me for what I'm doing now, for me. Totally believe that. Pray on it, what your mission is for you. But I changed my diet. So on Friday, I went to the doctor. And long story short, this was something that I already had set up. I haven't had a general checkup with blood work since 2022. Now, I have been seen by the doctor a couple times for, I got sick or whatever. But that's it. Because like you, probably many of you, I kind of go to the doctor as an as-needed basis at this point. Because, well, we lost a lot of trust in our medical community. You may not have, you may disagree, but I'm telling you where a lot of people still are, and I don't see it changing. But I was curious I'm not sick, or I didn't have any hokey pokeys. I don't do any of that, whatever. But I did want to just be generally looked at, and I wanted to have blood work taken. So I don't have my results for my blood work, okay? The last time I went, it was good, okay? I mean, and I've been to other doctors, female doctor, dentist. I do all of those things. So I know I'm in a healthy realm, but it was interesting because the nurse came in and she said, "How you doing?" And she's real sweet. And she's like, "I'm going to take your blood, but let me ask you a couple of questions." And I've mentioned something about this in recent videos I've noticed that when I go to the doctor in recent years, the questions are focused on depression, anxiety. Are you this? Are you that? And that's where, other than just how are you feeling, which they knew what I was there for, that's where the conversation went. And are you depressed? And I was like, no. And this was on Friday. So we all know what happened into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9/11, Charlie, all of that. And and all the things we've been dealing with. And I said, honestly, no. And I'm not. Because again, I'm prepared for unfortunate things that we're seeing, because I feel like that's where we are in time and space, and I have to change myself in order to be able to handle it. Okay, that's me. And she was like, okay. And she was like, well, what kind of changes? She's just interviewing. And she said, well, let me just write this down. She's like, what have you been doing? And I said, I started working out hardcore. Started out slow. I'm building. I mean, I'm not, I'm doing some really good workouts, basically 5 to 6 days a week. I'm exercising. There's different types. I said, I completely changed my diet. She said, well, what did you do? I said, I cut out all the crap as much as I can. I've taken out as much processed food as I can. I've gone as whole food as much as I can. Extreme high protein, healthy proteins. Obviously adding in complex carbs and fiber. Drinking tons of water. Have a few treats. And I said, I changed how I sleep. I'm trying to stay with that. I go to bed earlier. I get up earlier. It's more consistently. I said, I turned off the TV. I said, I turned off the TV. Like, when I say turn off, I mean, I didn't watch a whole lot of TV prior, but no. I mean, if it's on, it's because James watches Gunsmoke. In the evenings, just for like 30 minutes or something like that on Grit TV, or like we watched, obviously, the UT football game yesterday. That was the first one I've seen on TV and I didn't really even watch much of it. So my point is, and she was like, yes. And I said, screen time is limited. I said, I have a presence on social media, but I've really tried to stop looking at a lot of things, or just observe very little every day. And she was like, okay. So she wrote all that down. The doctor came in and she was looking at it and she was like, whoa. Now, this is the same doctor. I've had her for 6 or 7 years, young female doctor, younger than me. And she's a young mom. She's in her 30s. I think she's probably in her late 30s. And she was looking at it and she was like, wow, you've made some big changes. And I said, yes. And so she said, well, tell me all about it. And so I was repeating some of this. And I said, I feel better now than I felt ever before 2019. I said, I feel like I've gained my life back. She said, are you going to the gym? What are you doing? She said, I know you have a farm. And I said, well, I've got a weighted vest. I started doing heavy walking. I'm preparing for a 5K. I said, I don't run every day. I said, but I am working out I'm really trying to build on strength training 5 days a week. 5 days a week. And she was like, okay. And she was talking about my diet. And she said, the last time you were here, she said, you were 15 pounds heavier. And I said, when was that? She said, 2022. And I said, 2022? She said, yeah. I said, well, I had dropped down to not much. She said, apparently you dropped weight. And she said, by into 2022, you were starting to pack it back on. And I said, and guys, I totally had just, I don't know, I don't want to say I forgot, but she said, your BMI is 22%. She said, you are exactly where you need to be. She said, if you gain a little bit of weight or just lose, she said, you're actually where you need to be. And she said, how are you handling everything? And I said, I'm telling you right now, committing my life to this due to following the path of Jesus. I said, Jesus. And she was like, you are doing everything right. Because I told her I'm doing high protein, complex, good, healthy, complex carbs that I'm comfortable with, whatever. I'm trying to avoid processed foods as much as possible. I said I do have some treats. I said I drink a ton of water. I'm exercising. She said, unbelievable. And she said, I'm trying to tell women to start strength training. She said a lot has changed with information and data that has come out about the health of women. And she said, you picking up the weights, she said, cardio is just not what it's all cracked up to be. She didn't say not to do cardio, because obviously it is important, but you have to make sure you're getting in the strength training. She is my general practitioner. Sees women every day, 5 days a week. And she said, there's a lot of positive information. And she said, I'm going to be telling everybody about it. And she's like, she basically said I was the example of what I'm, not me personally, but what I'm doing. I said, I can't believe the change. And I told her also, I said, you may see my notes. I said, I'm not watching a whole lot of TV. And she said, I'm telling people, get off the phones. Get off the phones. So she was in agreement. And that's when she said she was looking at it. She said, well, your BMI is 22%. She said, you are right where you need to be. She said, you could gain a little bit if she said, you may fluctuate. And I said, well, I may gain weight I'm hoping due to muscle. She said, you might. And she said, that's okay. And I said, but I feel like I'm in more control now over my own self, my own emotions. I said, because of what I'm eating, what I'm allowing myself to be subjected to. I said, I'm not in denial. I know everything that's going on today. I said, but I'm getting what I need in terms of understanding. And then I'm going, okay, what am I supposed to do today? What is God calling me to do today? So I understand what's happening, but who am I in this situation, in this world, in this space? And as I tell you, who are we going to be going forward in this spiritual world? And so I'm going to be honest with you. That's the most time I've ever spent with a doctor, a general practitioner, probably in the last 30 plus years of my life. I felt like she wasn't just there just to, how you doing? Are you upset? Are you anxious? Do you need, let me write a prescription for this. She wanted to know exactly what in the heck I'm doing. It was like these types of things are what she wanted to go tell other women to do. And that doesn't make me, that's not about me. It's just the protocol of the things that are working for me right now. And I'm tweaking it. I'm still working on it. But I really want you, and I know some of you are going to say, well, I'm vegan or I can't have this. You know, I think you need to take bits and pieces of things that people are doing that are functioning pretty well right now or that are looking healthy. What are they doing? It's chewing the meat off of that bone, okay? I tell you to chew the meat off the bone and then take the bone and go make broth with it. That's what I'm doing right now. I got chicken in the crock pot, and then I'm gonna make broth probably tomorrow night. So I'm just saying, really focus in on understanding what are you dealing with. Most of us are sprung out emotionally. I told you before that, you know, even when I went to the doctor a couple years ago and through the past couple of years, I felt like I was strong and healthy. And comparatively speaking, I was. And I was able to function, and I could run a 5K. But I was inflamed. I was stressed. And has that fully gone away? Well, probably not. But what's changed is my ability to recognize it. I will tell you this. So, you know, I'm trying to be really good on what we're eating. I mean, I'm really getting strict about it. Not unrealistic, but it does call for planning and discipline, being home. Doesn't that sound like a good thing? I mean, who wouldn't want to be home? And it's helping my husband tremendously, more than I can ever talk about. But last week, this is no joke, I'll say this in closing. So one evening, James got home a little bit late, and we wanted to go work out. We had our pre-workout snack. I don't work out at the gym or even here with weights. I try to make sure I don't fast. I'm not actually fasting. I don't fast really at all. I do think it's good I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a snack if I want to. I think breakfast by what I'm seeing, within 30 minutes to an hour of me getting up, which is what a lot of people are talking about and recommending, especially before working out or doing heavy work outside like I do. I make sure I get some really good healthy protein, right? So we cheated last week. We actually cheated last night too, because I ran a 5K yesterday and I cleaned up the house and I was kind of tired. And I was like, can tonight be a cheat night, a bad cheat night? Because, you know, I live in the real world. So we got our favorite pizza. I did, but I only had 2.5 pizzas. I didn't go hog crazy, not because of the weight. It's just because last week we went to run errands and it was getting late and my boys weren't going to be home for dinner. And I just said, is there any way we can just kind of see what we can do at this place? So we went to a little hibachi place. Now I know what you're already thinking, and I agree with you. And I was like, well, we'll get the steak. And James was like, well, how do we want to do it? And I said, well, what about, we're going to get the rice, and it's rice, and we'll get some mushrooms and steak, and then maybe some vegetables. And he was like, okay. And we split it. So we actually split a dinner and added a side. Was it bad? Well, of course not. I tried to minimize some of the yum sauce. I just do it on the side and just dipped a couple of times. So no big deal. I didn't eat the whole half. I ate what I wanted, had plenty of water, came home. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and my fingers were like this. I'm not joking. And my knees were hurting. Front and back of my knees. And I was hurting. And my fingers were swollen. And that was very alarming for me because I've never had that happen before. And it took me an hour or two to figure out. I was like, what? I thought maybe I had worked out too hard. And maybe that was a small factor somewhere with holding and gripping. I don't deny that possibility. And I talked to some friends on Facebook, and they were like, sodium, MSG. I was like, I think I'm like, it's causing me to like flare up. I'm like, what in the world? And I don't know if a year ago or 3 years ago I would have reacted like that. I don't know if I would have recognized the difference. So what I'm saying to you is if you do as healthy as you can and shut out the negativity as much as you can and clean up your diet as much as you can, the more you go along, we've talked about this, and then you try to go back just a little bit, you're going to get slapped really hard. My husband has seen it. I really felt it. So will I be going back to that place? Probably not. Like I said, it was later in the early evening. I was tired. We had done all these things. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses. We chose different that night. And I paid for it the next day. Honey, you've never seen somebody having so much turmeric and anything I could do that was drinking water and movement. I mean, I was having to go outside and like, I was moving my hands and I was moving to try to get all this flushing going, just whatever, just movement and drinking. So if you have anything you want to add to that down below in terms of my husband was even like, are you having an allergic reaction? I was like, no. I said, it's not in my throat. I said, my lips aren't swollen. I'm not, because I've had one before. And I said, no. I said, it's like I've got sausage finger. I'm Shrek. I was like this. I said, I feel like it's inflammation. So maybe I'm wrong on that. Chime in. But let me know your thoughts. And we can talk more about, I know a lot of people are saying, well, what are you eating and da-da-da-da. Again, let me just say this just to bring it around town. As little processed as possible. As whole, clean as possible. It does not have to be complicated. High protein. And I've been sharing things that I'm eating. As good, healthy, high proteins. Beef, chicken, tuna, sardines. I love cottage cheese. Of course, I do have a protein shake every day that I work out, and I do that now. I'm eating lots of berries. I have my healthy sprouted oatmeal in the mornings as much as I can. Eggs. So there's a lot with egg whites. Do your research and find what you can do and get your body moving. Turn off the TV. Stop looking at X. Update yourself at a good time of the day where you can handle it and you can process it out the rest of the day so you can sleep. All the things. And give yourself a solid 7 to 8 weeks and see where you are. I think you're going to be shocked. If you like this video, be sure to share it, like, subscribe, and share. Pray, prep, and be peaceful. I will continue to tell you that I feel it is imperative that you get your body right. Because if you're healthier, you can sleep, you don't have poisons or as many toxins pulsing through your veins, messing with your heart and mind. You're emotionally going to be able to handle all of these stressors. And most importantly, make sure that you are spending time in the Word. It's all related, folks. If we want to be the whole Christian, not the perfect Christian, not perfect at all, but the warriors that I feel that are being called up right now in this time, I really honestly feel this is the most important prep you can participate in. Tell me your thoughts. Like, subscribe, and share. Pray, prep, and be peaceful. Have a beautiful Sunday. Spend time in the Word with yourself. Turn it off, folks. Okay? Turn it off. Get yourself right. And be that example for your children, your grandchildren, your spouse. Because give it time and stick with it and be disciplined. And you're going to see and be dedicated. If you fall off a little bit, just hop back on. Keep going. It's not going to take long for people to honestly say, what are you doing? And what an opportunity to share the testimony for Jesus in all of that as well. We got to walk the walk. I love you. Praying for you. Give me a hug, and I'll see you on the next video.